this morning on the program. There's some more Jets-Giants stuff that's come out from the Hard Knock stuff, specifically with the whole Aaron Rodgers, Jihad Ward thing. We'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get to the start of the season, which will be next Thursday night when you've got the Lions and the Chiefs kicking things off. Got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to get to. But I thought this was interesting, and we will talk to Darryl Strawberry coming up at 9:40. Very much looking forward to that.
Yes, our guy.
As he is having his number 18 retired next season, as we know.
I'm rocking the Strawberry.
You know,
today.
It's funny. I was going to wear the Strawberry 39 Yankee jersey that I have. Probably the last jersey I've ever gotten, and I opted not to.
Thank you.
Why?
Well,
It's a Darryl jersey.
No, I know. And look, when he played for the Yankees, I rooted for him too.
I know you did. I was around you.
Right.
I remember.
I was actually there when he hit the 3 homers as a Yankee against the White Sox.
And I remember that. I wasn't there, but I do remember that game.
It was an afternoon game.
We'll have some Darryl memories coming up a little bit later, maybe in the hour or so. But we'll talk to him at 9:40. But I thought this was really interesting. And in a moment, Mauricio coming up. We'll talk about that too. And Wells and Dominguez. We'll talk about that too. But this Pete Alonso thing to me is fascinating from this standpoint because more has come out because there has been a lot of conversation about what are the Mets going to do, what are they not going to do with Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has not had the power numbers the last week or so since all this stuff has kind of surfaced, though he did have a big base hit in the 8th inning last night that led to the tying home run. Yep, right. Absolutely. I did walk a couple of times, the intentional walk in the town, all that was fine. But more and more of what I'm reading makes me believe that all of this is a negotiating ploy from both sides, specifically in the Mets. So a couple of there are a lot of different articles about this. You had, Alonso spoke about it the other day.
Right.
Buck spoke about it. I don't want to say at length, but gave a good 90-second answer about it yesterday. You've had certain people have refuted the claims that the locker room's toxic, all that stuff.
Wow.
But here's what I'm taking from this, Joe. And
didn't players go to? Didn't I hear somebody was telling me out here some of the players went to Cohen to say you got to sign the guy?
There was an article that said there's a select handful of players that plan to go to ownership and the front office and tell them get the guy signed. So all of that, when I look at everything and put it in a vacuum, here's my takeaway from it, and it's kind of what I said to you yesterday and what I've believed the entire time. The Mets want Pete Alonso back, but they don't want to give him a 9 or a 10-year contract. Because one of the articles I read, I don't know if it was in the Post, it might have been, it might not have been, it might have been in one of these other articles. There's so many of them written about him. One of the articles specifically was talking about how the two sides, like supposedly the Mets have already offered him a new deal.
They have.
That's what I read. That's what I read this morning.
This is news to me.
That's what I read this morning.
Okay.
And I'm not saying this was yesterday.
Right.
I'm saying that at some point along the way, they've had a discussion about a new contract to where it was basically declined. And what I'm taking from it is that the Mets are not going to want to be one of these teams that gets locked into a 9 or a 10-year deal with a guy that's going to be 30 years old in a year. And it's probably looking like they want something on the shorter side, 5-6 years.
Right.
And
which I'm good with that.
But you also would understand if you're Alonso's side, hey, wait a second.
Right.
I'm the premier power hitter with the Ohtani and Judge. What do you mean you only want to give me 5? And I'm speculating for sure, but to me it makes sense that the one side is saying, no. If he got that from the Yankees, that's what I want from the Mets. And if you're the Mets saying, that was stupid, and we can't do this with these 9 and 10-year deals anymore. And I know they did it with Lindor, and I get that. But
they shouldn't have done that either.
Understand. So
he's not a $34 million a year ball player. I mean, let's be honest about it. I like him, but,
To me, all this is negotiating.
Okay.
That's in my opinion. And I do think at the end of the day that Pete Alonso will be here. And, you talked yesterday, you said where there's smoke, there's fire with a lot of this stuff.
I worry about it because this has been what the Mets MO has been forever.
100%. So now I'm going to take smoke and fire and reverse it.
Okay.
Because now if you've got players that are hearing all this and players are going to the front office and they want to go tell Steve Cohen, and all of a sudden you've got Alonso having to talk about it and Buck Showalter talking about it, you can get the tidal wave going the other way too. And maybe it forces the Mets' hand. Yeah. And maybe they come to some sort of an agreement where they don't give them 9 or 10 years, but it's not 5 either. And maybe 7's the magic number.
Right.
But I actually just think it's a big negotiating ploy by both sides.
Well, look, I hope that's what it is. Because to me, you can't let Pete Alonso go. You just can't. Like you said, If he's not okay, you want to give me Ohtani, you want to give me Judge, Pete's the next guy. And he might even be ahead of them as far as just a pure home run hitter.
Right.
He's hit more home runs than anybody since he came into the league. The guy's already hit 53 home runs. He's going to hit 40-something. I know he's been in a little bit of a tailspin lately, but I think a lot of it has to do with this. I really do. You know?
It very well might. And even last night with all this going on, he does get the hit in the eighth inning to get the rally going. When they're down 5-3, you get the home run to tie. That's fine. You know, I know the base is open, and I get it. It's a tie game. You're not going to pitch to him. But, you know, he takes the intentional walk. You know, they give him the free pass to first base because he is a feared hitter, and it is an open base. You know, the force, all that's fine. But even, I don't know. To me, it's, while there's a lot of confusion about it, to me, it couldn't be clearer. I really do believe this is all about term. I don't think it's about annual salary. I think all of this is about how long are you going to sign a guy. Now, you can let him play next year, and you can go to arbitration, and he'll probably make $20 million next year, and that's fine. You could let him go to free agency, and that's fine, too.
I don't want to see that happen. I don't trust it once you get there.
Yeah, and
once you get the free agency, no.
But you're still talking about a guy that when his first year of free agency hits, that season, 2025, he's 30.
Right.
He ain't 25. He's 30.
I understand it.
And then you come back to the conversation, what are we paying him for now? You know, you figure those first few years will be really good, really productive. But unless guys are doing something crazy, guys in their mid and late 30s don't perform like they do when they're in their mid-20s and early 30s.
Right. Not in this era, anyway.
No, that's what I'm saying. Unless you're doing something funky.
Right.
And I know nutrition's better and guys are in better shape.
Of course.
And the other thing, too, that became very apparent, which is something that I've always thought and believed, is how hard the guy works and how much he cares and how much he loves the organization.
He's really become and I got to say this, too. I mean, Pete's become a very solid defensive first baseman.
Yeah, he was a mess when he came up.
Right.
And he's good. I wouldn't call him a gold glove
he's not Keith Hernandez or Don Mattingly, but he certainly is. He's above average defensively now.
I agree. I think he's a good all-around. He's a great hitter, and he's a good all-around player.
Yeah.
You know, he does the job at first base, and that to me, and the other one too, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but there have been certain Met fans that have told me maybe him and Lindor don't get along. Every time Lindor is asked about him, he speaks, at least publicly. He always says the right things about him.
But again, this idea that you have to have this total harmony in a locker room is nonsense. I mean, there's been so many teams over the years that completely dispute that. And even going back to we're going to have Darryl on, going back to those 80s teams, those guys didn't all love each other. Right. Remember the photo fight between Keith and Darryl?
Yes,
I mean, come on.
Give me a haymakers at one another.
Right.
Now, you just got to go out and win.
That's it.
I do think that. You know, sometimes with the accessibility we have to these guys now with the social media where everyone can have an opinion, and I hate to say it, but things like this, what we do on a daily basis, it's not just an article every day anymore like it was in the 40s and 50s and 60s. There is just so many opinions that fly.
There is.
And so many people see it. It's almost like it's clouded what actually happens. You had numerous people inside the Mets refuting the claims that the locker room. I mean, Max Scherzer, who really has nothing to lose, nothing to gain. There's no reason for him to not speak honestly. Could not have spoke better about that team and the guys in the locker room. Justin Verlander was gushing about the organization when he was.
But he didn't want to leave. Let's be honest. Verlander didn't want to leave.
No, I think he wanted to be here.
Of course.
But when he went back to Houston, I mean, he couldn't have said better things about this organization. And sometimes I think we all think we know what's going on. I don't know about you. I've never stepped foot in that clubhouse since 2 years ago when I went in with G and met a couple of the guys.
Absolutely not.
So how the hell are we supposed to know, at least myself, to sit there and say what the locker room is, what the locker room isn't? Don't know. What I do know is I see a guy that hits 40 home runs every year, drives in 120 runs, going to score 100 runs, and has become one of the premier power hitters in baseball.
Yeah.
And how do you replace it?
You don't. And he's got a chance, and he will be, the greatest everyday player they've ever had. I mean, let's be honest.
Right now, I can't argue with that.
He's going to go past everybody. I mean, let's be. And again, the fact that he is a homegrown Met, that is a big deal. I'm always going to be more partial to the guy who came up out of the system. I'm always going to be. As a Met fan, I think that's with everybody. You're partial to that guy. That's your guy that came up as a homegrown guy. And that's what Alonso is. And I've said this before, bro. I've been there since day one with this franchise. They have let every big player they've ever had go, all right? Everyone, except for David Wright. They actually traded Tom Seaver. I mean, you got to be kidding me, And I told you, when that happened, I will never forget 1977, right? Because remember, the trade deadline then was June 15th. So, June 15th, whatever it was, 1977. And I remember getting my sports, because back then Sports Illustrated was like the Bible.
Yeah.
I'd wait with bated breath to get my Sports Illustrated. And I get it after the Seaver trade. And there he is on the cover, is Seaver in a Cincinnati Reds uniform. I mean, I was ready to cry. When they let Darryl walk to the Dodgers, oh, my God. Oh, bro, was I ticked off about that. Oh, let's sign Vince Coleman. Let's bring it with a steal bases now. Come on.
Well, and so that goes to the point, too, of, coming up through the system. We had Wright in here last week because he was promoting the FDNY, the baseball game for charity. And he was great. And we were talking to him about, what it's like coming up through a system. Doesn't mean the Mets, just in terms of when you come up through a system, that franchise's way. You know how they do things. Yeah. You know what expectations are. You understand the fan base. So let's take a second and let's imagine a world where the Mets do trade Pete Alonso or he left during free agency. Now you've got to replace a 40-120 guy.
Yep.
How do you know you're getting that even from a guy that's done it on another team? Yeah. How do you know he's going to come here and do that? Have we not seen that over and over and over again, that the guys come here and they suck?
Yeah. Well, we've seen it over and over and over again. That's for sure.
I mean, and there are so many examples, and we don't have to run through them all, but even guys that played in big cities and did it well came here and didn't do it well. Like, was it Bay?
Jason Bay. He was in Boston. He replaced Manny in Boston.
And was great
and was good there, yeah.
And then he came here, and you felt, I know he had a couple of injury issues, but he was not the player that he was elselsewhere. So
Carlos Baerga, Roberto Alomar.
Alomar, to me, is the one
Mo
that
Vaughn.
I'll never understand. The Alomar, because
he was done. He was shot when he got here.
But we didn't know that.
Well, we didn't know.
He was still coming off a good season. We had no idea he was going to be what he was.
We didn't know.
Point is, you better think long and hard about, and I get the whole, I was the one that said to Boomer, 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, do you think, if you're not sure if you're going to be able to re-sign him, do you think about trading him for a haul now? And the more you think about it and you sit there and say, you know what you've got, and it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
You better think long and hard about that.
Yeah, well, the Mets traded Tom Seaver for a haul. They got Pat Zachary, Doug Flynn, Dan Norman, and Steve Henderson. Was that a haul? Right? I mean, okay.
Oh, you're right.
They got all these young players, and
you don't know what they are.
And they stunk. I mean, they went into this complete terror from 1977 until 1983 when Darryl came up, and then when they made the Hernandez trade, you had to wait that long. They were terrible in those years. Terrible after the Seaver trade.
Yeah, no, I know. It was 6-7 years of nothingness, essentially.
Right.
So prospects are great until they're not. And you just better be careful with this. So I actually do believe, the more I think about it, I do believe that Pete Alonso will be here for the long haul. I think the two sides will figure it out. I just think it's negotiating. It's a shame that it gets out the way it does, that we're kind of going through this now. And maybe it's because they're not good. Maybe it's like we need something to talk about. I don't know. But to me, I'm starting to see smoke going the other way. And I
hope you're right.
I know you don't want to listen to the fans all the time if you're an owner or a GM, but sometimes when it's overwhelming and the evidence is obvious, maybe you need to rethink it a little bit.
Well, I think the owners should listen to the fans more than they do. To be very honest with you, because here's the thing, and I think that there's owners that listen to the sports writers. The sports writers don't give a damn about the team. I mean, let's be honest about it. They could care less if the Mets are good, the Mets stink. They're all about what they got to write and all of this garbage, especially the baseball writers. I have, very few of the baseball writers do I like, okay? But listen to the fans who care. These are the people that care about the team, that live and die with the team, that are passionate about the team. Obviously, the ones that, spend money to go to game season tickets and all of that. These are the people that care about the Mets. The people in the media don't care about the Mets. I mean, come on.
You're right. You're not wrong.
No, I'm right.
Now, I don't think you always want to listen to the fans. I don't think that's good business either.
Well, I understand that.
But sometimes it's so overwhelming that you have to do right by your fans. Right. And I do think a large majority of this fan base will be in an uproar if you ended up trading him.
I'll be leading the charge, I can tell you that.
I'll give you the one because I know he got murdered for it, and I understand that the Cano part of it was the bad part of it. But, you look back at the Kelnick for Diaz thing.
Yeah.
Edwin Diaz.
The
Met fan was ready to just give up on the season, and I guess as it turned out, they would have been right. But they were ready to give up on the season in March when Diaz falls on the guy, or not falls, but basically trips over the guy's leg and tears up his.
Only the Mets.
And you go back a couple of years ago, what were they doing? And Kelnick's been okay. But he has not been anything to write home about because you don't know.
You don't know about these prospects.
They do it.
And that trade, look, I mean, we all talked about Robbie Cano and he was over the hill and picking up his contract and all that.
That's the bad part of it. I agree.
But the trade was really for Diaz.
Correct.
And he's,
and the first year it looked bad.
Right.
Well, the first year it looked bad. But my God, you look at last season and what he became.
Yeah.
And you saw exactly what Brody was trying to do.
When he's healthy, he clearly last year was the premier closer in the game. Clearly.
Yes, you make the case he was the best pitcher in the game.
No, you could make that
definitely
case.
do that. All right, we'll take a break. Just getting started. 6:15 on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. It is Joe and Jerry in for Boomer and Gio. Going to get to Peter Schwartz next. Later in the hour, we'll talk about Mauricio and Wells coming up and Dominguez, and also a couple of thoughts on Garrett Cole, who, as I've said before and I will continue to say, might be the most underappreciated superstar we've had in New York.